What's up, everybody? About to get out of town. You might be able to see somewhere back there, suitcase stuff. Suitcase getting packed up. But thought I would upload this video real quick before that, so y'all have something to remember me by while I'm gone for a few days. Which I might be able to get a video uploaded in the meantime. I'm not really sure, but we'll see. Either way, this was a league I started right after the new season rolled over, so all new Throne of Eldraine cards. As you can see, there's none of them in this list. I don't want to go buy the $20 Brewer Pass or whatever, so instead we're just going to be playing some Rakdos Shadow and seeing if anybody in the leagues is playing new stuff, what's going on. It's for the most part pretty similar to the list I ran last time. The only changes are trying out some Celestial Purges in the sideboard. Really good answer to the scam cards, Fable of the Mirror Breaker, stuff like that. Moved the Blood Moons to the side. I've been seeing this ongoing trend on Magic Online where like 3 or 4 of my matches every league are against either decks running Blood Moon themselves or decks that are like geared really well to beat Blood Moon. So if that's the case, I don't necessarily want them in the main for 3 or 4 matches every league. So try them out on the side because like the matchups that you do want to see Blood Moon, the Urza Saga decks, Trons and amulets and stuff like that, you really want to see Blood Moon. So I kind of wanted to keep 3 copies so that I see it post board more often instead of having as many game ones where I just like into it. To replace the Blood Moons in the main, 4 Dragon's Rage Channelers. I'm not a huge fan of it, but see how it does. I know people have been calling for it for a while. Maybe it'll be better than I think it is, but who knows? We'll just jump into it, show off some of the games, and go from there. Through the magic of CGI and artificial intelligence, get to round number 1. Spirit Finger. There we go. All right. Round number 1. Up against Aspiring Spike. Always a pleasure to see what he's got brewing up with the new season. No companion. We've got a bit of a slower hand, but I do have Kroxa. And like, if we're up against something fair, something creature-based, I've got a bunch of interaction. If we're up against something unfair, then I can just start throwing lightning bolts at their face to fill up the grave quickly to get Kroxa back. They're on a mulligan to 5 with a Fable, so I assume it's something fair. It looks like Jun's Saga, which I typically wouldn't think of Spike as being a Jun's Saga aficionado, so kind of interesting there. Maybe there's some sort of tech going on I don't know about. Really, Spike pretty known for going against the grain with brewing, and so we see a bunch of red, but we see no red mana. Not really sure what's going on yet. Token's fine. Ah, yes. Blossoming Tortoise. Modern staple. Let's pause real quick. If you have not seen or read this card, I happened to jump into Spike's stream after the match to kind of see what was going on. So this Tortoise is 2 and 2 green for a 3/3. When it enters the battlefield or attacks, you mill 3 cards and return a land from the graveyard to the battlefield tapped. Activated abilities of lands you control cost 1 less to activate. Land creatures you control get +1/+1. So the obvious implication is getting things like Urza Saga back, get that Tortoise value. The less obvious implication, which we don't see this game, is the card Lava Claw Reaches. Manland from original Zendikar, Draft Chaff, bulk rare Manland. It's a black-red Manland, takes 1 a black and a red to become I think it's a 2/2 with AX, gets +X +O until the end of the turn. So the tortoise lets you pay 1, reduce by 1 to 0, give it +1/+0, and just do that as many times as you want. So you get a +1,000,000,000 +0 Lava Claw reaches, and then you can pair it up with things like Shadow Spear out of the deck to give it trample. You've got the Jund interaction to kind of clear the way and make it so you got a big one-shot Lava Claw reaches. Kind of cool. When I first saw it, I had no idea what the turtle was doing. So, bolt the turtle, bolt them to try to flip over Delirium because I have the Bowmaster to ping down the token and just try to provide as much pressure as I can, which like we're going to get there for game number 1. Again, they did mold a 5 that game, so a little bit of a non-game. Mold a 5, not see much red mana. Say much, because they did see a Chromatic Sphere. Can't say none. Thoughtseize will take the Rin. They are on a pretty land-light hand. Rin would kind of linchpin a lot of it together. Down Shadows, so if they go for this Bowmaster, we can just bolt ourselves. Have the biggest threat on board. They don't currently have an answer to deal with Shadow. I'm kind of hoping if we can just get some attacks in. We could play out the Scourge here, but if they just strap up the Shadow Spear on the Bowmaster and swing, then Scourge dies regardless of blocks, no blocks, whatever. So I'd rather keep the Scourge on the back burner. Let's rewind here real quick, because I thought this was kind of an interesting line. And if you go into Spike's chat, if you happen to watch this on replay, they'll all be telling me I misplayed. So he plays out a Wrenn and 6 while I have this Nihil Spellbomb out and goes to take up on the Verdant Catacombs. I choose not to fight over the fetch land here because I want the draw off the Nihil Spellbomb, but I'd rather clear out this Bowmaster. I can always Nihil Spellbomb later. I don't really care about the Wrenn that much. Like, I can attack it down if it's that big of an issue. But I do not want him to Thoughtseize away like my Unholy Heat and get a chump blocker and then Fable into a chump blocker. I'd rather just like clear the board out, which thankfully we managed to do. He does get his Fable, but at the end of the day, like, I've got the biggest threat on board, so real winner. Could Unholy Heat the Goblin Shaman, but I'd rather save the heat to try to take out something a little more meaningful. Then kind of as soon as I know that he's committing all of his mana to something, then I can decide if I want to heat something. Heat a blocker. Plus, he's Wrenn down ticked, so I could fight over a fetch land there if he had ticked up. But now we don't care about Wrenn. We don't care about Lava Claw reaches. We've got our basic swamp, so Shadow could potentially force a bunch of awkward blocks now until the end of time. He's doing a good job of finding chump blockers turn after turn. But we're doing a good job of applying pressure. So Saga doesn't do anything through Blood Moon. Free ditch to Fable. Doesn't draw anything to deal with our threats. And we get across the finish line. Nice. Game or match number 2 on the play. Since opponent mulliganed, I want to lead on a Thoughtseize here instead of Channeler, because Thoughtseize gives me better plays into both the fair matchups on the mulligan and the unfair matchups regardless. Because like if it's something unfair, I can go Thoughtseize into Thoughtseize Shadow. if it's something fair, I can go Thoughtseize your turn 1 play or Thoughtseize your interaction for Channeler into Channeler plus Thoughtseize. Both options, like, definitely look a lot better if I've got the turn 1 Thoughtseize. So here I play out the 3/3 Shadow, which, as you can probably tell, I had the fetch land. I could have gotten Shadow up to a 5/5 to dodge Fury. I was really trying to bait my opponent into evoking the Fury on the Shadow and like bolting myself to save it, because then they might have to ditch the Fury, ditch the Fable. I didn't think it was very likely, because if I'm not fetching and shocking and knowingly getting my Shadow outside of Fury range, then they probably assume that I've got a way to grow the Shadow, whether it be a Dismember or a Bolt or something. So, not great bluff, but I think it's like kind of worth it. Give it a shot. We'll just clear out the board a little bit, attack in. I could have had 2 more damage potentially, but I don't think that really matters. Then opponent ditches 2 lands, gets 2 redraws. I kind of just have that gut feeling they drew a Bowmaster, so that's why I'm not dashing Ragavan. It's after you play enough Magic Online with enough unfortunate luck, you assume these things are going to happen. Like, oh yeah, my opponent's going to see the second Bowmaster right here, 100%. Why wouldn't they? Got a Bowmaster and a Reflection. A fetch land would have forced the chump block with the Reflection. Fortunately, we just get a Goblin Shaman token. So now I'm in an awkward spot where they can copy Bowmaster. Didn't find a removal spell. I could have drawn twice, but that would have just given them the ability to ping down my Goblin Shaman token. Really want that. On to game 2. Sideboarding against Scam. I didn't talk about sideboarding against Jun's Saga. It's mostly, I brought in 1 Blood Moon, which I happened to see, but I figured they could get basics pretty well. Against Jun's Saga, you're really just trying to keep like Saga itself at bay. Against Rakdos here, trimming a whole bunch of Ragavans, because against the deck with Push, Bolt, Bowmaster, Ragavans of their own, Ragavan looks really bad. Bringing in Nihil Spell Bombs, bringing in the Celestial Purges, Prismatic Endings, which, since I don't have Blood Moon in the deck, and I'm not really worried about Blood Moon out of their side, I don't have to be skittish about bringing in all the white-based exile effects. So Celestial Purge can hit. I don't know why I didn't ditch Kroxa there. I know it was kind of a free ditch, but I feel like I liked my other ditches better. And with them having so many cards, I figured I could just like hard cast Kroxa, get a card, delay a turn, or escape Kroxa, get another card, instead of just escaping Kroxa for 1 card. If that makes sense. If they had Grave Hate, maybe it changes up my mind a little bit, but it didn't. Kind of just hope they don't draw it. Got a Dothian to evoke a Fury, so all the Furies are gone. We know they don't have an Undying effect because their last card's a Terminate. Got Escape Kroxa to get that out of hand, which they'll be able to terminate the Kroxa, but that's kind of fine. The good thing about Kroxa is if it's not exiled, it keeps coming back. Kroxa's down. They find a Fable, but we can like Prismatic Ending the Fable, bolt the token, which I know it's like bad value for us to use 2 cards on their 1, but ultimately, like, I've still got Terminate and Bolt in the back, and I really just want to get cards in the yard to escape Kroxa again. So the first turn my opponent stumbles, we can just throw Kroxa back out there and be back on the front foot. Game 3, mulligan decisions. So 1 lander, basic swamp, doesn't do anything. And then 5 lander with a swamp and a purge, doesn't do anything. So pretty easy mulligan decisions, unfortunately. Like, I hate that we have to go to game 3 against Scam on a mull to 5. That's really brutal. Any sort of value piece like a Kroxa or a Fable or something here like this, and we're pretty behind the ball. Get our Godless Shrine in case we find one of our white exile effects. Fable's a reasonable draw. It may be getting us back in a little bit. Death on a Kroxa is okay. You have this Terminate. So definitely one of these positions where if we were in this spot with 2 more cards, I probably feel fantastic. But being in this spot with no extra cards, a little bit rougher. I could have played out the Shadow there, but I was really just scared of my opponent going like hard cast a Fury and completely wrath my board. I thought that was a bit more than I could handle at the moment. Do find an answer to the grief with the Bowmaster. As long as our opponent doesn't have an Undying effect, we can get back to Channeler versus the World. Do have an Undying effect, so now we have to find an answer to this grief. Kind of Fable, so a little bit of top deck variance, not really going our way here. Other land doesn't do anything. Like, lets us get down Giganta, but Giganta in the face of this 4/3 menacing grief isn't doing much. They did find the Fury, so just a difference of top decks here. If they don't attack with everything, I can Bowmaster and try to like put a chump blocker in front of the Fury, double up on the grief or something, or put like if they attacked with just Fury grief, then I could double up on the grief, put a chump blocker in front of the Fury and survive a turn. But since they attacked with everything, I had no outs. This is match 3, I think. So on the play versus Tron, held back the bobble to get the double triggers on turn 2. Looks like we are going to be able to... Oh, this is always a fun line. Let's go back and slow down the replay a little bit. So we bobble, flip over a Fable. So now we've got land, enchantment, artifact when Mishra's Bauble goes to the yard. We just need 1 more card type for Delirium. We've got Unholy Heat that does 2 damage to any of our threats. If we have Delirium, it does 6. But because of the way state-based actions work, if you deal 2, in this case to a Dragon's Rage Channeler, and the Unholy Heat gives Delirium, if that's the 4th card type, then that Channeler grows to a 3/3 as the damage is being dealt to it, kind of like Tarmogoyf is a 2/3 with a Lightning Bolt, and you can actually survive. So since I have no desire to have this Unholy Heat against Tron, doesn't do anything outside of potentially tagging a Karn the Great Creator, and I'd rather have the clock. then I can go ahead and target my own channeler with an Unholy Heat. But you have to be careful to not flip over any card types that would give you Delirium, because if you do, that Unholy Heat's going to resolve and kill the channeler. So that you have to make sure that Unholy Heat is the 4th card type as it resolves. So as you can see, we flip over the Fable because it's not giving us Delirium. I don't want the Fable. The Dragon's Rage Channeler clock is a lot faster than worrying about it. The Bowmaster, however, would give us Delirium, so I have to keep the Bowmaster on top. Even if I don't want it, I can't put it in the yard and have it give Delirium before that Unholy Heat resolves. Scourge a pretty good top deck, because that means with a fetch, I'm just presenting lethal next turn, and opponent doesn't have a way out of it. Crazy to see Tron top deck there and not have like 7 Karn the Great Creators or Wormcoil Engines, but like it. This is game 2, boarding against Tron, bringing in like prismatic endings, blood moons, taking out anything that says kill a creature or kill a dude because they don't matter. Ending the turn 1 dramatic effect just to try to slow them down by like a turn. Fortunately, they do top deck another Sylvan Scrying, so they're going to have access to Tron on turn 4. I just kind of have to hope that they don't find a payoff, which we know they have Beseiju. They use the star. We see a backup tower and a backup mine along with the Beseiju. Perilous Vault off the top. These are all fine because I've hit this Karn the Great Creator like the god tier shadow gamer we are. Try everything we can to speed up the clock, so hopefully we can get across the finish line. They have the Beseiju for the Blood Moon, but I'm kind of hoping maybe they're F6'd, maybe they just like want to go to their turn and then plan on Besejuing. I can use up some mana on their turn, whatever. And they did not end up Besejuing, so go to our turn. I'm using this Karn to just go get Nihil spell bombs out of the yard as a redraw, or out of my sideboard as a redraw. Like tutoring up a 2-mana draw card, which is better than nothing. Like I'm not ticking up on their Sphere or Vault or anything and putting a blocker on board. But managed to get across the finish line against Tron, which always feels fantastic. This matchup was a doozy. Ready for some fun. So, turn 1 on the play. We've got Chandler. We've got Bobble. Fable's pretty good. So, I'll keep that against most decks. I don't really know what they're up against or what we're up against. That was a little off to the side, but it was an Urza Saga revealed. So, a Tangle Pool Bridge Urza Saga means it's some sort of like affinity deck. Historically a pretty bad matchup for the Shadow side. I could fetch shock, bolt myself, and get down Shadow to try to speed up the clock a little bit. And maybe I should. Lightning Bolt inside of combat there, so if they float mana, they don't get it on their second main phase, and I don't want them to have a moment of like, oh, I should play this second main phase now that I've got mana, so that's why I went ahead and killed that A-Wire Might right there. Kind of slow down just a little bit. Surveils. The Bowmaster, I want the Bowmaster in my deck, so I left it on top, even though I'm shuffling it away anyway for the Shadow. So top decked an Ornithopter. Still got a Companion and a Dark Steel Citadel. We can Bowmaster down the Mim Knight but the construct token they make is still going to be a 4/4, even with the ping, or even with the Memnite kill, because Ornithopter, Tangle, Pool Bridge, Springleaf Drum, and then the construct itself. So I didn't have an attack in with the Shadow. Gonna swing back with big construct. We're gonna throw the Shadow in front of it because we assume they don't know how combat damage with Shadow works, which works out in our favor because now we got a really big Shadow that can maybe stand in front of one of these constructs or something. Ditch the extra Bowmaster to Fable because I don't need two of them. Like, the second one's really not doing much of anything. First one's killing the Mem Knight, but the second one's just kind of sitting around. Then opponent makes this very good attack for us because we get to shoot down the Mem Knight, go to 1, so our Shadow outgrows the lifelink trampling construct, get some chump blockers. Got an answer to the Ornithopter now, so I would not say we're stabilizing, but I wouldn't say we're in a horrible position. Like, opponent is at 31 now. They've got a lot of draw steps they get to see. I have no idea why they didn't go for the attack on the or with the Ornithopter. Unless they just assumed I drew a removal spell, but you still just make me use it, right? Then here, I went for the Unholy Heat on my turn because I played out the Ragavan, and I didn't want to pass and then maybe have a Metallic Rebuke that I couldn't pay for because I used the one on the Ragavan. Then here's some new tech. Up the Beanstalk. So this is a 1 and a green enchantment. When it enters the battlefield or whenever you cast a spell with CMC 5 or greater, you draw a card. So really cool pickup for Affinity. I wouldn't have thought about that. So Thought Monitor, Sojourner's Companion, the 7 mana Affinity dude, not the companion. Thought Cast, all 5+ mana spells that just draw you cards off the Beanstalk. And this is a part where it gets really awkward. So they've got Thought Cast going on the stack here. They've got an Up the Beanstalk trigger. I could respond by making a Bowmaster, which in hindsight I should have done, because I wasn't thinking about how big the army token would grow. I was thinking about, oh, I can get 6 pings here. I can ping down a companion, and that's not really that great. Because I was thinking I'm gonna need to copy the Shadow to have another giant blocker to stand in the way. But I should have just thought about, like, if I copy the Bowmaster, get the army token big enough, then I don't need another Shadow because I've got the Bowmaster triggers. They're going to be maybe killing off something. And then I can go from there to later on copying the Shadow and having 3 giant bodies instead of just 2 Shadows. So definitely a case of me not thinking out how, or thinking about all of the variables here. Just was not thinking about the army token, the size of the army token. We're not thinking about taking that into account with, like, how I was going to block and whatnot. Another Beanstalk. Their companion. So I could have pinged them. I'm really glad at the moment that I didn't, because they're just giving me like extra triggers to be able to shoot down the companion. As we see, this army token's already up to an 8/8, and I still have the ability to copy Kiki-Jiki, or copy the Bowmaster with Kiki-Jiki. So that's another token, or another counter. So yeah, with this army token being a 9/9, if I had thought about that sooner, this thing would have been like a 13/13 or something now. And maybe I would consider attacking in with it because I've got the bolt. I've got the ability to copy shadow as well. So this time I think like, okay, yeah, I'm gonna copy it now. Get all these extra triggers, shoot something down. And it's kind of a weird case of I guess self-fulfilling prophecy is the best term for it, because I don't do the thing the first time, like when I had the best opportunity to. Not necessarily the best. They might have just like not gone all in on that first turn if I'd copied the Bowmaster. But I choose not to go for it and end up in a position here where I kind of get punished. Not necessarily for the plating, because I've got a 13/13 shadow and an 18/18 orc army token, but this spell bomb. Spell bomb takes out the army token. If I had just copied the Bowmaster earlier, I probably could have gotten one more threat off the board, and I probably could have had the chance to copy the shadow there instead of feeling pressured into copying the Bowmaster. So a little nitpicking, but I think a nitpicking that I should have thought more about during that game. Like copying the Bowmaster first, getting that token sizable so that I didn't have to invest into it later. This is game 2 against Affinity, boarding out like some Ragavans, boarding out, I think I've boarded out a couple copies of Fable of the Mirror Breaker, pretty slow and clunky. Boarded in the Prismatic Endings, Pithing Needle, EE. I don't really have any dedicated artifact hate in the deck. It's all kind of splash damage. But this is definitely one of the matchups that I would rather have March of Otherworldly Light over Prismatic Ending. 1 mana being able to deal with strip mine a land, instant speed kill a construct, strip mine an Urza, Saga, anything like that would be really, really nice. Looking pretty aggressively for the second land. Thankfully, our opponent doesn't have a lot going on either. Just the 2 companions. No thought monitors, no thought casts. I think I ended up bringing in 2 Blood Moons in the matchup. They're not great with like the Springleaf drums, but if I'm able to kind of keep the Springleaf drums at bay, they deal with Saga. If they don't see Springleaf drum, then it stops Thought Monitor and Thought Cast. They could have Treasure Vault to get around it, but everything's not always going to go perfectly. So we have a clock. Not a great clock, but it's a clock. Faster clock than that. Again, just kind of like buying time until we hopefully find a second land and we can get down to Scourge. We could proactively play out the Pithing Needle to name Urza's Saga. That doesn't seem too exciting. Kind of want to just hold up Unholy Heats in case they find companions, or they don't do anything. We'll take out the Memnite. At the end of the day, this Chandler is a 4-turn clock, so not irrelevant. I think Chandler is better than I'm giving it credit for because of the style of deck this Rakdos Shadowless is turning out to be. Like, this is very, very much a more grindy value shadow deck with like the Fable of the Mirror Breakers, Kroxa, Blood Moon, stuff like that. Without Street Wraith and Battle Rage, you're definitely less in on the aggro, get them dead ASAP plan. But I've also been trying to keep up on the side with how often Battle Rage would be good, how often this kind of grindy game plan is good. And I think if they came out and banned something like Grief, then I'd be all in on Battle Rage and Street Wraith again. But with Scam being as popular of a deck as it is, and the Omnath decks running around online all over the place, like, I cannot support playing Battle Rage at the moment. Get there with some fortune from our Dragon's Rage channelers and lack of never seeing a second land. Here we've got a Blood Moon hand. I just want to... They've got a Dismember on top of their library. I hate that I put the revealer like right behind the camera there, but Dismember coming off the top. Thoughtseize. We see a Springleaf Drum, so I'm going to take that so that we've got Blood Moon to maybe take out this Saga, cut off the blue mana. I do find a Cranial Plating, or they had the Cranial Plating. We knew about that. I'm just kind of hoping that I can take, or they make one construct. I'm hoping I can just like Blood Moon away the Urza Saga, take a hit, get down the EE to wipe up whatever I need to, and hopefully rebuild from there. Get our extra basics. Like, I know that Blood Moon stops our white-based exile removal unless we get Giganta or we get like our one of Ragavan or Fable or something still in the deck. But at the end of the day, like, if both cards are putting you in winning positions, you don't really care which one you see as long as you see some number of them. So you could see the white base removal. You could see Blood Moon. Going to go for the double Dismember here. They do find a second Springleaf Drum, which is really unfortunate. We know they have this Thought Monitor, so if they find any creature, there's a chance that they're going to be able to play the Thought Monitor immediately after, and we don't get any sort of priority opportunity. Speaking of creature... so I thought they were going to play the Thought Monitor because they had 6 cards, and then I remembered that Botanical Sanctum is not an artifact, so the Thought Monitor gets reduced to 2. Not enough to cast the cast it out. We top deck a Thoughtseize, which is amazing in the face of the Thought Monitor. Get down Giganta. So now they've got a dead Urza Saga in hand. Unknown draw for turn. Any threat is lethal. Their companion, strap it up, so we can't attack in unless we find a removal spell. Bolt is not a removal spell, so we'll have to trade off the Giganta for the companion if they attack in. If they don't draw a removal spell, they're probably not attacking in. Or another threat, I mean. Memnite. I think if the plan was to Memnite, you should probably attack first. Like, don't show me it's a Memnite. But here we get I find a shadow, which is fantastic because it's a 1-turn clock. Kill the Memnite on our turn to stop them from being able to make blue mana off the Springleaf Drum and potentially draw something. And opponent doesn't have an answer to the shadow. Nice. On to match numero 5. Pretty solid opening hand. Got some interaction. Got a Ragavan. Got a Fable. Opponent on no companion Dragon's Rage Channeler, which is a little bit of an odd combination because you expect Channeler out of like shadow decks and stuff like that. You don't really expect it out of just Rakdos Midrange or Rakdos Scam. But we see double Bergie, Kroxa, Underworld Breach. Don't really care about Bergie. Kroxa's fine. We'll just ditch this Ragavan because it's not doing much in the face of blow math. It's not doing much in the face of Bowmaster. Down Fable. Get our extra basics in case they have Blood Moon. And we get to flip a Kroxa into the yard off Channeler. So that's a very, very excellent turn of events for us. They unearth the Kroxa. Cool. We'll ditch a Thoughtseize that we don't care about. Kill the Bowmasters on our upkeep so we can rummage off the Fable. I think that's what it is. It's loot when you draw first and then discard. It's rummage when you discard first and then draw. Magic. What's it called? Linguists out there. Escape Kroxa, and probably just going to be too much pressure for our opponent to deal with. Yep. Number 2. Treating it kind of like a Rakdos mid-range mirror, like boarding out some Ragavans because they have Bowmasters and a bunch of 1-drops, it looks like. Trimming some Thoughtseizes. Bringing in Nihil Spell Bombs. Bringing in the white-based exile effects. They all hit Channeler and Bergie and Kroxa and all that fun stuff. I've got a Celestial Purge that could hit a Leyline of the Void if I end up caring a tremendous amount about that. Ditch the heat, because who needs that when you've got pending Purge? Scourge is a decent draw here. I like getting the Scourge down with nothing on my opponent's side of the board and them tapped out, because it gives me some chances of them just doing exactly like this, playing out a threat. We get to deal with it, get in with Scourge, and start snowballing a little bit. If they had mana up at the end of my turn and could have like untapped or bolted the Scourge into turn, untapped, played something, then it would have been a much less appealing line. All right. Pause real quick and talk about this. So, my opponent plays out a Nihil Spellbomb. I've got a Prismatic Ending. They've got a Saga that can make a token. If I attack first and they make a token to go chump block, then I can't Bowmaster down the token, because token's a 2/2 because of Nihil Spellbomb. So instead, I get the idea I'll Prismatic Ending the Spellbomb. Like, I don't really care about the Spellbomb, but if I Prismatic Ending it, then they have to either commit to drawing the card or making the token. If they draw the card, I get a free attack in with Scourge. If they don't draw the card, then I get to attack with Scourge. And if they try to make a chump block with Saga, I can Bowmaster ping it down. So we decide to go for that. I figure I've got this Purge for the Kroxa if everything goes wrong. I've also just got a Nihil Spellbomb that I can play out if I need to. So we'll see if they get the cards they need to escape the Scourge. Doesn't look like they drew what they needed to get enough cards in the yard, so instead they just play out a Channeler, make a Construct, which is A-okay with me because I get another attack in, get to shut off the yard with Spellbomb. In case you don't know, Spellbomb triggers when it hits the graveyard to draw a card. So if your opponent has an effect like Rest in Peace or Leyline of the Void, in this case, out, it does not trigger to let you draw a card. So, what do we think about the deck? I think it's pretty solid moving the Blood Moons to the sideboard. You could keep one or two in the main just to have that, like, oops, I win button. But as we saw there, we saw Jund Saga, which it's okay against. Rakdos Midrange, it's bad against. That Rakdos Burgy deck at the end, it's bad against. Affinity, it's okay against. Tron, it's good against. So, like, one okay to negative against Jund Saga, one okay to positive against Affinity, one really good against Tron, and two really bad against decks that could be playing Blood Moon themselves. Channeler, better than it has been previously for me. We saw the game against Affinity that double Channeler, like, single-handedly won. So really cool to see that. The white-based exile effects still been really solid. Chalice looking pretty sus. I don't know. I've been enjoying Rakdos, enjoying messing around with it. Hopefully the video inspires you to give it a shot as well. But I got to finish packing, so that'll be it for me. I'll have a link to the channel, the stream down below if you want to come check out one of the live streams, as well as the Twitter and the Discord if you want to come join the Control Freak Discord, talk about Shadow or anything non-Shadow related. Hope you all have a fantastic rest of your day. Stay safe, enjoy some good food and company. I will catch y'all back live later. Adios for now.